This is Will Faber from Hardstrum News. I'm here today with Michael Splat from Spalt Instruments from Vienna, Austria, of all places. Well, I can't help but seeing these beautiful instruments. We passed them by yesterday, and pretty amazing artwork. Why don't you tell us a little about?
Well, I've been making these for about 20 years now, and I used to go to art school, and then I started making guitars. And at a certain point, those two things started to somehow combine, and I started to make these pieces, which I'm trying to meld the two things, the playability and the musicality of it as an instrument, as a guitar, where you can really take it, play it.
Yeah.
But it's also something where, you know, you like looking at it.
What's your inspiration when you start to build a guitar? Is each one completely different, or do you have some?
Most of them are really different. Each one is unique in any case. Depends. I go to flea markets sometimes on the street. Originally, the idea was also to find, because I like when things have a story, a history. It's like I like using woods that have been exposed to the weather. They have a character, history. So sometimes I find stuff on the street. Sometimes we go in flea markets. I use a lot of vintage materials also because of that. Like this pickup here, that's a celluloid cover.
These are very unique. I've never seen anything quite like this.
And it's from the 30s. It's a hair piece, which I made into a pickup. So
you make your own pickups?
I make the bobbins. I have Lindy Fralin, for instance, wind them for me, because that's an art in itself.
Unto itself.
So,
amazing.
Yeah.
Is there a story behind any of these images in
here? This whole piece is based on a story by Oscar Wilde, which I read. Well, he wrote a collection of short stories called House of Pomegranates. And this specific one is called The Fisherman and His Soul. I have a collection of these little bisque dolls. They're from the 1830s, 1850s or so, which I use like every now and then in these pieces. And then one day in the flea market, I saw this silver tin Milagro kind of figure. And somehow seeing them next to each other, it triggered this idea, okay, because the story is about a fisherman who falls in love with his mermaid. Then he finds out he can't be with her because he has a soul. So he looks for ways to get rid of the soul. And he finds a witch who will help him separate himself from his soul. And he does that and wants to send the soul away. And the soul says, well, at least give me a heart. And he says, no, I need that because that's where my love for the mermaid is. And the one thing the soul can extract is the promise that once a year they meet again. So the fisherman goes off back into the sea with the mermaid, and the soul travels the world and has adventures. And since it doesn't have a heart, it doesn't have a conscience. So all sorts of things happen, and then they meet again. And the soul tells the fisherman his adventures. And it's written in a very oblique style, so you kind of have to guess what the soul did, but it's not explicitly, described. It's part of the power of the story. It's this really interesting Victorian kind of morality love play. Anyway, they do this a few times, and eventually the soul comes back and says, in a city about a day from here, I saw this dancing girl, and she had these little white feet that were like doves flying. And the fisherman is thinking, okay, my mermaid doesn't have feet. I kind of miss that. I want to go see that. So the soul says, well, come, take me back, and I'll lead you there. So he does that. And they come to the city, and there's no girl, but the soul makes him do things. Again, in this oblique style, bad things. And he's horrified, but the soul has power over him. And she says, well, you never gave me a heart. What did you expect? So it ends up as an unhappy love story in the sense that, the little mermaid washes up on the beach dead, and he sees her, and he's desperate, and his heart breaks, and the soul can enter again. And so in a way it's kind of a bittersweet ending, but it's a pretty powerful story. And so this was kind of the genesis of this piece.
Should be able to play some very soulful music on this.
Yes. So yeah, and then
that's one of the most interesting stories I've ever heard of how to make a guitar. That's fantastic.
And so we made this cabinet also.
Oh, this is part of
This is part of
this
the
is
piece.
part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So this is actually an amplifier that goes with it.
Yeah.
That you can plug
There's
in.
an amplifier, and my friend Tommy Aguilar of Apache Amps built it for me. And we have a little drawer. And this is an old edition of the story of Oscar Wilde. So it's comes as a whole, piece with its own story. Art is not supposed to be something that you can use. So these pieces are kind of a crossover in the sense that, yes, they're art on one level, but they're still a highly usable instrument.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a spot in the art world because of that. Yeah. And a lot of guitar players say, well, I don't need the art, I just need the instrument. Yeah. So it's kind of carving out a niche and finding a way, And the response has been great. People really like it. Because the problem we face as guitar builders, we need to make money to be able to live and work. But our reward is really when we see somebody, we witness what happens to the guitar when somebody plays it. Yeah. That's really what matters. Yeah. And unfortunately, the problem of economics is that many musicians do not have money to buy what we make. Yeah. This is common to most boutique guitar builders. So I had a conversation with Ken Parker that kicked off this train of thought at a show. And the idea is that, yes, if you buy a piece like this, it costs, 30, 40, 50,000. Obviously, only a very wealthy person can afford it. But they don't just patronize us as artists and boutique builders, but along with this comes this is a line I developed as a solely musical instrument. It doesn't have any decorations or anything. And we call it the tool. And it's part of this package so that it's called the patronage project, we call it. This gets donated to an artist, a struggling, emerging artist, as a way, and the client who buys the piece, of course, has a say in who they think should get this, and we kind of consult about this. We don't want him to, give it to his brother-in-law's kid or something like that.
Who doesn't need it.
And it's got to be a legitimate thing. But in this way, we also can connect the emerging artists and enable them to have a boutique instrument that's hand-built and, of commensurate quality.
Fantastic.
And, you have a philanthropic kind of thing.
We ought to give a little back, right? Pay it forward, as they say.
Exactly.